Welcome to Serenity Rising, Healing with Cancer. I'm Bron Watson, and I want to welcome you to not just a podcast, but to a community. A new way of seeing, feeling, and walking through the chaos of cancer. Welcome, Nat. So good to have you here at last.
I know. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me, Bron. I know this has been many months of us saying we really need to catch up, probably years, really.
It is. So as you can see, Nat's post-traumatic growth work, like I've known Nat, over 20 years now, haven't we?
Yes, I think so.
You have to
Definitely
be.
showing our age, Bronnie.
But that's a good thing. That is our superpower.
It is.
So where I'd love to start is, how did we get here? We've known each other for a long time, and we've both been through a lot these last few decades. How did we get here?
I know. I think our kids first met. We first met when our kids were in childcare, when they were little tiny kids, and we got to know each other, and I think we clicked very, very quickly. And we just did what busy parents did, and full-time work, and we just kept doing the do.
Yes, we did.
And, we'd catch up, we'd all get together as families, and then we started to notice that there were little detours on our little straight path, didn't we?
Yes.
We've had unfortunately, a number of challenges and detours along the way. So, yeah, and I think reaching out and supporting each other when each of us had our lowest of lows, and we've both, I know, definitely had those over the years, which is normal as we age and life happens, doesn't it?
It does. And, adversity, call it what you will, it comes when you least expect it. And which is like how we are here on Serenity Rising, talking about living through cancer. And, we never thought we'd end up here. So I'd love for you to hear, we're going to get more about I'd love to hear more about your story. Like, how did we get to post-traumatic growth? As a retired psychologist, you've seen a lot of trauma. Like, I always refer to you as like the trauma expert, which is probably not what you want me to call you, but it's just about, you've seen professionally a lot of trauma. You've had friends and family with a lot of trauma, and you've also had your own adversity through those times. And tell me more about that.
Yeah, great question. And, as you know, I'm always an open book, so I'm more than happy to share that if it can help the people that listen to this.
Yep.
I did experience my own cancer journey, in that my mum was diagnosed with cancer when I was back in year 12. So a really challenging time at the best of times in our life, when we're really, trying to get ready to sit for our end of school exams. And these were a big deal, the HSC. And Mum was diagnosed with cancer, and it was that back then nowhere near the treatments and the knowledge that we had then. I still don't even know what type of cancer she had other than breast cancer. And that started a 7-year battle for Mum with cancer. And at the time, we grew up in country New South Wales, and she couldn't get treatment there. She had to travel away for treatment. So it was a very, very challenging time. And she ended up being the longest surviving cancer patient in the town that we grew up in. And at that time, it was 7 years. And that was it, from diagnosis until she passed away. So I was, moved away still. She was very encouraging that you've got to still move on. You've got to go to uni and do all the things. So I studied psychology. Apparently that was what I was always born to do, but I don't know. I just landed there because I wanted to do physio and missed out by a couple of marks, but whatever. So I went along. Here we are. And I did a lot of work with trauma and people who were really challenged. And I don't often say this, I know you know this, but I'm happy to share it, that I was at some of the biggest traumatic events in history. So in Australia, we had the Port Arthur massacre. So I worked down there for a year, dealing with families and the community of people who had been on site when that massacre occurred. That was very challenging. And looking back now, it was an absolute privilege and an honour to be able to do the work and to help people through what I was able to help them through. I mean, I hope that I helped as many
Well,
as
you
I.
did. We know you did. How many out of all of the people you worked with did you get back to work?
Yeah, so I think out of
We know you did,
110, all but 8 went back to work. Not necessarily at the site, but yeah.
which is huge after something so incredibly traumatic. You
Yeah,
know,
and I
it's a
think
lot. I mean, do you feel that the work through there is that what brought you? I mean, how did you get into the becoming like the trauma gal? I mean, I don't know if
yeah,
you that is not
yeah,
the
I know
correct
it's
term, people,
pretty.
but that's really where you've ended up for the last 35 years.
I have. I just loved, and it's terrible use of term like loved, but I felt like I could make a difference
Yeah.
in people's deepest, darkest moments. And it sounds awful that I have a gift or an
Well, you do have
affinity
a
to do
gift.
that, but I knew that I'm good at connecting to people, and I felt like I could listen and really help them move through that without judgment, just being there to support them. So I had that, and then the mine collapse at North Parks, which
Yeah.
was out near where I lived. So again, a very traumatic time, and a year on site afterwards, not just come in, do the work and leave them and abandon them in their time of need. So it was about
Yeah.
really maintaining that relationship.
Yeah.
And that was the work that I sort of fell into then. A lot of trauma, a lot of people, unfortunately, in my life. I had some very close friends who were diagnosed with cancer, and I helped them navigate their own cancer journeys
Yeah.
and in some cases transition at the end of their life. And again, such a privilege to be
Mm.
able to do that for them and for the people left behind, because I had
Mm.
experienced that myself. I was there for
Yeah.
mum, but also, yeah, it just was beautiful to be able to hold that space and let people feel and
Yeah.
be whoever they needed to be without that fear of, I don't want to show my emotions. We have to show our emotions.
Yeah.
We've got to feel no matter how hard it is.
And that's yeah, sorry, you go. You go.
Uh, and then I just kept working my own practice, and I had, I think at one point, 25 staff, so psychologists and admin, and it was a thriving, we had multiple locations in regional New South Wales, everywhere, North Coast, South Coast, Central
Yeah.
West. And I absolutely loved the work that I did, the people that I worked with.
Mm.
And then I had my own trauma. Sometimes I'm a firm believer that we often get sent the thing that we're working in for whatever
Cheers to
reason.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Cheers. And it's that it no longer then was what I'd learned in textbooks or what I'd learned through working with clients. It took it to that next level that I had my own lived experience. So I won't go into huge
No.
detail and think people need all that, but I had a significant ankle reconstruction. It was always going to be major surgery, and unfortunately, it didn't go very well.
No.
And as you know, because I know you were there, and I think I
Mm.
woke up in intensive care and you were there, and I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? I got systemic sepsis and almost died. And here I am still sitting in my bed on my laptop. I remember you coming in and going,
I do. I'm
what
gonna
the?
take that laptop out of your hands, and none
Exactly.
of us we didn't even know where this was gonna end up, which is here. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very much, 8 months of in and out of hospital, multiple surgeries, and then, next level of trauma.
Mm.
And we won't go into that detail, but yeah,
No.
significant PTSD as a result of the whole sequence of events, and me not really recognizing how bad it was sitting there on my laptop because, my mum worked until the week before she passed away. There was that
Wow.
really deeply ingrained two big patterns that you keep going, you push yourself, you work hard, because she was who she was, because she was so good at what she did. She worked really hard and helped and made such a difference for people. She was an amazing, amazing woman.
Mm.
And I just was shown that that's what you did. You keep going, you keep going, you keep going, no matter what. And the self-sacrificing pattern was rife. Put everyone's needs before your own. So here I am sitting in bed on my laptop, doing the pays, doing this. And I'm thinking, I look back now and I think, what was I doing,
Yeah.
avoiding dealing with it, but also I think I was scared that if I didn't keep going, if I stopped, that'd be the end of me. I didn't want to die thinking there was
Yeah.
regret or that anything was left
Yep.
undone.
And I think that's your question was, who am I now when that comes in? And look, as you're talking, and so just to give context here, guys, Nat knows what she's talking about when it comes to trauma, all forms of adversity. And I'd love your thoughts now that you not only have a lived experience, but you have that evidence-based experience because that's what you worked. If there was one key aspect of trauma, so if we've got a listener thinking, they're going through cancer. Hello, it never ends. Whether it was one day ago or 5 years ago, the process doesn't end. So if there was one thing out of all of your experience, and it's, as you can hear, guys, extensive, what's one thing that you feel is, how would you how would you describe trauma? And B, what's a common thread that you've seen throughout that whole experience?
Yes, I think one of the things that really stands out for me in all the work that I've done, and because I experienced it myself, and I know as we've chatted for years through your journey, it's been something that's come up, is that we so often want to get back to who we used to be. I want to
Yep.
be the old me. I want to be who I used to be. And that's what we're seeking always. I've learned through working with thousands and thousands of clients, but more so once I have my own lived experience, that we can't go back to who
Yep.
we used to be. And it's not a bad thing
Agreed.
because the person we used to be didn't have the experience, the wisdom, the knowledge, the lessons and learnings that have come about through our crappy experience. And if we keep trying to be who we used to be, that's without all of that.
Mm.
And I think we need to acknowledge that what we've been through is, I can say the S word, is shit.
Mm.
It's hard. It's not easy. However, we do have the inner strength to draw on that more than we know. And when we don't feel like we have it, that's when it's important to lean on our support people around us, even though it feels hard, because
Well,
often
the queen of the control over here and the queen of not asking for help. Guilty. So yeah. And
So
I'd
I
like to
think,
come back to that when you're ready, but I want to come back to that thought. But yeah, keep going.
yeah, I was going to say, I'm not quite sure. I can't remember the rest of the question was more that, trauma changes who we are in a lot of ways. And the way I think of it is it reshapes our identity, our relationships, our priorities in so many ways. But I also think that it makes things so much better as a result, because what we used to worry about and stress about is no longer important. You just look back and you think, oh my God, what was I worried about that? That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't important in the big scheme of things when you are facing cancer battles. So it puts things in perspective. And if we don't look at what have I learnt, what am I learning from this experience, and not let us define who we are. I think that's one of the other things that I've learnt, that you can be more astute with who you are, where you spend your time, and more protective of it.
Yep. Love it. So if we had a listener who was at that place of who am I now, which is an identity thing, what would you say?
Mm, great question. Because really, I think identity has so many layers to it. And a lot of the work I do now really is around identity, because I feel like that's the core. If we work at that level, we can make the greatest inroads. If you're feeling like, who am I now? It's like, well, hang on, think back to when you were a little kid, when you were, you know, innocent and life hadn't happened, and you didn't have the worries of the world. And I know, sadly, some children do, and they're born with the worries
Yeah.
of the world. So I
Yeah.
certainly don't want to discount that. But if you
No.
are lucky enough to not have that and have had a fairly reasonable upbringing, then go back to who were you then when you were your most whole self? What did you love doing? What was important to you before other people's behaviors or opinions really influenced you? Reconnect with who you were back then,
Wow.
because it's still in there no matter how much stuff you've gone through. What did you used to enjoy? Where did you find fun? And really focus on, okay, how do I reconnect with that and build
Wow.
from there?
And that's a really, really good question, because that's the thing, is that you know, in terms of, I even refer to the old Bron, whereas we've got this different Bron, but Bron's still Bron, but there were behaviors or beliefs around stuff that that cancer has, I don't want to say taken away. Cancer has given me the opportunity to go, is it relevant? Is it valuable? Should it be part of who I am? So now that we've looked at, you know, going back to when you were younger, that's a really, really good point. And these conversations, guys, is the fact that it's about creating awareness to go and have some thoughts, go and have some go and look for things. And what a great place to start than to look into where you've come from.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. So now we are here and we're on Serenity Rising. And this is a question I ask every single time. So Serenity 8 years ago to me was a woo-woo word.
Yes. Yep.
I never would have
I'm with
even
you
used
there.
the word serenity. What the hell? That reminds me of the castle, going to show my age now. The serenity. You know, that's what I thought of when I thought of serenity. But now that I've come through and I'm finding the serenity moments, not everybody relates to that word. So when Paul was on the podcast, he used the word the pause. What word would you use because in terms of people, we're all, adversity just comes in different shapes and sizes. So if I was to ask you, Nat, what word would you use for finding peace, the pause, serenity? I'm putting you on the spot here.
That's okay.
What word would you use for serenity?
Yes. It's funny, isn't it?
Mm,
And I have a few things that pop in, and I know, yeah, I think for a bit of context, my brain never switches off. It never has. It's like that ADHD brain that just keeps going and going and going. And, you know, meditation is not for me because I can't be still long enough. But I think one of the things, since we've been talking about that serenity, is really that sense of inner peace. And I don't mean that everything switches off and you got nothing going on up here, because that just has never happened. But it's that sense of feeling a stillness within my heart, be the best way to describe it. Like for me, I'm a country girl, so I like sitting out and just being outside, connecting with nature. I live near the beach now and I love water and I love beach, but I get that connection just sitting out, having a coffee, looking out over the mountains.
I love that.
So yeah, it's that sense of calm and inner peace, even if there's stuff going on inside, that it's that stillness, I think, probably.
Yeah. So stillness, inner peace. Let's go with stillness.
Yeah. Okay.
Because isn't that great? Because you can have stillness and have absolute carnage going around you. That's my belief, is that I can be sitting in the Cancer Institute not knowing what's going to happen when I walk through the double doors. Yet I can have stillness in myself consciously, because I'm learning and I continue to learn. I've taught myself that space.
Yep.
It's taken 3 years, mind you, but I've done it, and irrespective of what's coming next. And I think that's the real key when it comes to the trauma. Like, let's be honest, this whole thing is very traumatic, and the trauma doesn't end just because you finish treatment.
Oh, goodness.
Because it doesn't. So that brings me through to post. Now, I've mentioned this a few times in previous podcasts, and it is a school of thought, but I think it is so relevant to beyond the trauma. Is that right? Have I got that right? Like, what can you just define it for me first? Let's just define it so I can know what on earth we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So
your definition.
I didn't know. It's like this whole world, because I'd been working all these years with people who were the lowest of lows in the deepest levels and layers of pain. I was working in the problem rather than future focused and things like that. And there was a lot of work that we needed to do to work through things with people. And then I was like, I got into more the coaching space, and it was this whole way I liken it is on a continuum, a spectrum from -5 to 0 is that clinical needing help and help to process things, to 0 to 5 where it's that more positive moving forward rather than looking back and moving away from the pain. It's moving towards. So I was like, I wasn't really very good at that at the time because.
But isn't that dealing with a crisis? Because I think that there are times like Serenity isn't for a crisis. Let's be honest. Yeah. Serenity is for what you're talking about, the -5 to 0. That is so important to understand that, and remembering that it can come at a blink of an eye and change tomorrow, but then switch back again. So I love that. So you're saying in your trauma specialist space, you were the -5 to 0 and you realized there was this missing link, and that's the 0 to 5 post-traumatic growth.
Yeah. So really it was about, well, okay, we can help people work through the pain and the trauma and the grief and their illness. What happens here? It's almost like, and this is part of, I retired last year because I was getting frustrated at focusing on that rather than, well, what about after that? Where do we grow and who do we become? And how do we get comfortable with our new identity? And I thought there needs to be more than this. So that's when, I went down a million rabbit holes, as you do.
We love your rabbit holes. They've all come out okay, to be honest. Yeah.
And I think
you were looking for the 0 to 5. Let's just put that into context here.
So then I think post-traumatic growth isn't then about pretending you haven't been through what you've been through, acknowledging that and discovering that something meaningful can still grow from that. And then stepping into, well, who am I now? Not running away from what I've been through, but owning it fully as ourselves and saying, it's okay. This is part of our story. And stepping in and owning that, as uncomfortable and crappy as our story might be in some chapters, it's okay. And it's up to me what I choose to do with it now and the meaning I choose to give it, so that, always acknowledge what you've been through. Don't dismiss it, because avoiding that is not a great tactic either. It's about, okay, how do I own this, make it part of my story, and make it part of my post-traumatic growth journey?
That is so powerful. So all that kept coming to me then was ground zero, that it's that post-absolute crisis of, in our case, in the cancer journey, that diagnosis or the prognosis. And as you know, I don't believe in those things. So it's really that not dealing with the crisis, but then in my world, what I call the what's next. And when I say what's next, I literally mean today, what's next, not next year or next, next millennium, like it literally is the next, what's next. And to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where I think this work steps in, which is why it's just so aligned with Serenity Rising, because this is part of how we find out who we are now. And it's always, it never ends, because that's the fun part. It's not taking on, well, I'm the cancer survivor. You'll never hear me say that ever. Why? Because I'm still Bron, right? Thriver. Still don't even like that word, as you know. Don't call me anything. I'm just Bron. So it's I am still Bron. So I think it's that ground zero. And this is what I want to talk more about, is the ground zero. So when somebody is at a space in time, notice I said space in time, to understand post-traumatic growth, that they're, what did you say? Own it and then grow? I can't remember exactly how you said it.
That'll do. Own it and grow. But it's that stepping into it and owning that identity, that it's okay. Because fighting who we are, and really, a label that someone else gives us or that we take on because we know others who've been on whatever journey and that's what they were referred to as. Like for me, you hate the word survivor. I hate the word victim.
Me too.
Passion.
Yeah, well, we're not victims, are we?
No.
Well, what would you describe? So you hate the word. Tell me what you think. What's victim to you mean? Strange question, I know.
Yeah, well, I think to me it's, and I remember when I was first moved into the coaching space, I remember this visual with a line. It was cause and effect.
Yes. Yes, I
And
remember now.
yeah, remember that? And I put it all
I
in my
do.
beautiful purple colours and
We
branding
should
and all that sort of stuff.
drag that out, because it's so valuable. We might see if we can put this in the show notes because
And
it's
put it in the show notes.
Can we
I
do
would
that?
have it
Because that'll
somewhere.
be in that computer that's nearly full of memory. Just saying.
Yes, yes. And I think that it's a perfect visual to explain when you're at the effect of something, you are behaving not necessarily deliberately, but subconsciously as a victim at the effect of something. Like bad stuff happened.
Sure
So
does.
you get stuck in the whole, I can't do anything. I've just got to deal with it, and not the poor me, but, it's important to spend some time in there to acknowledge it. But then it's about what can I do now to be at cause? Like, how do I move forward and take responsibility, as in not saying, oh, it's my fault and
No,
I
that's
own it,
correct. To be really
but
very clear on that.
definitely that it's about what can I be responsible for. The only thing in our control is how we respond, not react, respond to something and what we make it mean or do or how we change that as we move forward. We never, ever are responsible for illnesses and things like that
No,
happen,
we are
ever.
not.
Very,
And
very important.
exactly. So in cancer, of course, people blame and shame, especially when you
Mm,
have a diagnosis. What's the first thing you do? You go and look, why me? Why did I get cancer?
exactly.
Why me? And then you go down the rabbit wire. And if you go to Google, it's going to
Oh,
tell
it's
you.
awful.
So your advice at that time, of course, would be not to Google, right?
Yes, but we all do, don't we?
We sure do. Damn it.
Yeah. Shouldn't have done
That's
that. Shouldn't have looked at that.
no,
But
and it's not helpful because it's going to give you information that in actual fact may not be relevant to you. So when someone is at ground zero, Nat, and they're at that point where they're ready because they've got that awareness to go, you know what? I'm here. What's next? What would you suggest? How do they start post-traumatic growth? I mean, because clearly I believe it's the guidance of an expert, but what about before that?
I think one of the things is, again, as far as getting to that serenity, and as I described it as stillness, it's about what
Yeah.
if I sit on my own, just have some quiet time and a moment, might be a minute, it might be 10 minutes. And a lot of the work that I'm now doing, which I love, is around the three brains, the head, the heart, and the gut. There's evidence now to show that all three, the head, the heart, and the gut, have their own neurons and neural networks. So they are their own centers of intelligence. And what happens when we go through something awful, at least one of our three brains will shut down because we are human beings and our nervous system will do anything to keep us safe. That's its job.
That's right.
Keep us safe, keep us alive, make sure we keep breathing, all that sort of stuff. So what tends to happen is that our head brain is still there, overthinking, analysing, constantly going over and over and over and over and over things. You know what that's like, particularly
I do.
with a cancer diagnosis. There's all that what if, and what if I did this and what if I did that, and other people's opinions. They're telling you everything and you don't know what to believe or what to listen to. And what happens is our heart brain is our emotional brain. It's where we feel, it's where we connect with people and have relationships. Sometimes in order to protect the people around us so they don't see how hard it is for us, we can shut down our heart brain because it's painful. We
Yeah.
don't want to feel the pain, or we disconnect from people because we don't want them to feel our pain or feel like they have to fix it for us. And the
Yes.
gut brain, the best way for me to describe the gut brain is it's that intuition, that inner knowing, but that's where our sense of identity lies. And when something happens to us, the gut brain is usually the one we shut down because we stop trusting ourselves because it let us down, or we might have, if something happens, we might think, oh, we made a bad choice, or someone let us down and we go, oh, see, I shouldn't have trusted them, and you go back down that path. So usually, back to my long-winded story, the three brains, knowing our three brains and the role they play, knowing that the majority of us will be stuck in our head brain, overthinking, overanalyzing. If we can take a moment, 10 minutes to just calmly sit and breathe and just picture reconnecting our head, our heart, and our gut as if the blood is flowing through, and just, you might want to put your hand on your head, your hand on your heart, and your hand on your gut, and just sit there and ask yourself, what am I thinking? See what comes up. What am I feeling now? How does this make me feel? That's in the heart space. And if nothing comes up, then you know you've shut your heart brain off.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, what's my gut telling me? What does my inner knowing tell me right now? And again, if nothing comes through, you got nothing, you go, that's a bit I've switched off. And then you can start to realign them. And just the way I do it is often, if I'm working with a client, I just get you to close your eyes and then imagine like a bright light, glowing light coming through your heart space, have it flowing through your body as if the blood's flowing right through you, and letting that connect to your head, your heart, your gut. And it will, the more we practice it, slowly reconnect that. And then you can, if you keep practicing that, you can go, okay, what am I feeling now? And eventually you can go, oh yeah, I can feel something now, because you start to tune in. So that's probably the best, quickest way to really connect that, to know. That's the first thing I would suggest people do, to reconnect those, because when we're operating from all three brains, we can cope with anything.
Wow. So true. So true. And I think that is just so simple. Like, if that is a serenity moment right there, that I couldn't ask for more in that space, because, and the thing is, it's not something you have to do once, right?
No.
And then I think the best part next is that you don't have to fix it. You just allow that light to come through and do that visualization to allow yourself that time, the space, and see what's blocked,
Yeah.
And
without the judgment, that's exactly right. Exactly what you said. It just is. Don't try and fix it, because that's your head brain taking over again to try and protect it. It's like, just let it be. And what I guarantee you will notice, the more and more you do it, the more you connect in, it might start out, and you can ask yourself, what color is it? If I picture it coming in, the color will change the more you do it, and
Wow.
the serenity will really start to flow you. Sometimes I get people that go, I say, picture a golden light coming in, and you do that. But then you go, oh, it's red, it's black, it's spiky, it's whatever shape or form it has. But it will always morph through to often rainbow, multicolor, beautiful light, purples, aqua, whatever. It will change, which is part of the three brains reconnecting, because they were connected at one point.
Well, I think as kids, they were just automatically connected until, generational trauma and life stepped in and,
Exactly.
I don't want to say carved us up, but we became fragmented. And that's my visual for it, guys. So that is so powerful and yet so simple. And I think from there, because I'm just mindful of the time, is that if that alone, that awakening, because to me, that the sacred time, just the time of sitting is just that alone, and looking in. Because that's one thing, as the queen of the control over here, was that I didn't ever sit with myself because I was too busy looking after everyone else.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
then asking for help, like, what? No, I don't need help. I'm the one who gives all the help. So I feel that it's so, so simple, but it's repetitive. Don't think you have to do it just once and we're done. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. It can take you 5 minutes. I don't care
Wow.
who you are. We all have 5 minutes in our day. Don't try and tell me you don't have 5 minutes, because every one of us does. It's just the priority we give, because I used to be shocking. I don't have time for that. Oh no, I never have time for that. I never sit. And I had no serenity in my life. I never had stillness. I was busy, doing. But look where that got me. The best thing I ever did was to give myself the gift of slowing down. I'm definitely more protective of my time and who I choose to spend it with now. And it's just 5 minutes once a day. It might be just before you go to bed at night, where you just sit there with that and just be.
Oh my goodness, I love that. I love that. So with that, if someone wants to hear more about this work and what you're doing, where can we encourage people to come find you?
Do hang out on social media. Can't say I love being on there, but I'm on
I know.
Instagram at Dr. Nat Green and on Facebook at Dr. Natalie Green. Yeah, so they're probably the best things. I show up on there and I just, talk
It's
real.
just if anyone's got a question, I think that because we're opening up conversation, we're opening up awareness. And I know you've got a quiz that'll help people get started. We're going to put that link in the show notes because this is just the start. And I love the fact that we have you as part of our gang at Serenity Project, because just being able to talk about what is post-traumatic growth. Is it possible? Is it even, can it be done after major trauma? And I think after what you've worked and been a part of, and let alone your own journey. Do you love that journey? That's for you, Joe Muirhead.
Yeah, Joe, that's for you.
That's for you, Jojo. Is you've seen it. You've seen the worst of the worst in the jails. You've seen the worst of the worst in trauma that none of us can even begin to understand. And through that, you bring this gift. And this gift, my friend, is so powerful because did you hear how simple it was? It's such a great way to start working on the things you can work on. So that's the serenity part. God grant you serenity to accept what you cannot change, the courage to change the things you can. And this is where you're coming from, I think, is that have the courage to sit for 5 minutes.
Absolutely. And that could be, or will be, the greatest gift you give yourself, because if you're not worth 5 minutes of your time, what's the point?
Yeah, true. So final words of wisdom, what can you share with us?
Oh dear, wisdom, there's got to be some in there somewhere.
Come on, I know there's somewhere. I know you've got some wisdom.
I think, if you're walking through illness or supporting someone who is, because we know that as a caregiver, it is tough, then please remember that you're not just surviving something difficult. You're living through an experience that may shape your life in ways that you can't see yet. And in that journey, Joe, for you, there will still be moments of meaning and connection, courage, and even growth. So even though it feels impossible or really challenging right now, there is a way. And I love the work that you're doing. It's around finding that serenity, regardless of the chaos going on around you. And Bron, as you said, I've got a free quiz that we're going to put in the show notes. And that's the work that I've done around archetypes. And I love that because you can find out what your archetype is, and that will help you work out where your strengths are, where your challenges are, and how to move you from trauma into post-traumatic growth in a more accelerated way. So that's another really cool thing, as well as the 3 brain work. So simple and a great starting point.
Yep. And tell me just before we go, archetype, tell me what that means.
Yes, so I've come up with 7 archetypes, and they're not, a personality quiz that you got to do. I believe that as a result of what we've been through in life, what shaped us, and it might be intergenerationally, that we take on a role. So if you've been through lots and lots of trauma, then you might have developed a pattern. It's like a pattern that's formed, that when you go through something challenging, you, like a rising phoenix, you become a phoenix riser, where you fall down, but you always get up no matter what. You get back down and back up, back down. So that's one of the identities, one of the archetypes. But there's 7 of them, and you will know which one you take on, and that becomes your pattern. And you can move from one to the other archetype based on what's happening around you. And it's really cool, and you will know yourself more deeply than you've ever known yourself once you can tune into that, because it tells you where your identity might have. You talked about a fracture before, fragmented. That's what I refer to, an identity fracture. Something happens and a bit of us breaks away because we take on who we think we need to become, and we lose that little innocent part of us as a child that took on that identity, and that's about reconnecting and fixing the fragments and putting them back together. So it's amazing stuff.
That's
And
so cool. I can't wait to
free,
do
so
it
it's
myself. I can't remember. I can't remember if I've done it, but I need to do it again because my brain's frozen. But thank you, Nat. Thanks for being here today. And like always, guys, please check the show notes out for any of the details, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me, Bron.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great having you here. And what I would love you to do is leave a comment or ask a question using my fan link below this episode and on every episode that we post. I would love to hear your thoughts, your questions, and I'll get back to you. Have a great day and bye for now.